crony capitalism is an ever-present threat in any democracy, in a market democracy. But yet, market democracies in successful countries have regulators who have been able to fulfill this fathom.
Capitalism must die. The good news, capitalism must be reborn, must reinvent itself.
So there's a desire to do more than is required. At our current life cycle, when we have the kind of poverty coexisting with the kind of wealth, is greed going to be the denominator of success?
Greed leads to aspiration. So if I want to count all the things, the good things greed has done, and all the bad things it does, it's about 90 to 10. But humans are not animals. We are only 99% animals. And that 1% difference comes from the fact that we have a cerebrum. And that's a scientific fact.
But the challenge out here is that what the corporate India faces is duplication.
Shackled earlier was the sheer enterprise, grit, determination and power of Indian entrepreneurship. I think that has in turn driven everything to new levels. So when you talk about all the developments that have happened in the telecom sector, in the power sector, in retail, in textiles, in steel, in media, every industry conceivably, some regulated, some not regulated, some partially regulated, some tightly regulated, everything that you see is because the forces of entrepreneurialism have been unleashed.
That paradox relevant to India, which shows that no principle has universal applicability as may have conceived of in the West, especially when it applies to India. India adopted the machinery of democratic politics. The idea of democracy, the spirit of democracy was alien to it, but the machinery of democratic politics was attractive to the elite because it provided one more track of upward mobility coterminous with the institutions of the past.
That while on one hand you want a huge economic growth and we are just going straight by the numbers, that growth number, we are not going into the qualitative part. And there we really need to focus on that now, is how do you actually bring in qualitative growth in India and not just growth given by this number.
There's the growing power of small parties and coalitions which impedes development and which allows things. There are incredible parallels between what's happening in the UK at the moment and what you've been experiencing in India with respect to your relations between your media, your political elite and your corporate elite.
The first instrument of enforcing accountability in a democratic government, in the democratic process.
Competition law is for the enforcement of certain principles which make it anti-competitive, violations of the Competition Act, while competition policy is essentially a broader framework which creates conditions in the market, the structure about how to make it more open, make it easier for new incumbents to come or leave, create a level playing field.
That we really need to do a story about the aspiration for education that there is in our country. You know, we misunderstand, and too much of our attitude to the poor is chivalric, because whether it's the house help or the drivers or the darwans, they
Lots of improvements in education, health standards, everything has happened. But if you see the distribution system, that has not really gone up to the level what we wanted.
So for the last 100 years, we have been dominated by two discourses, capitalism and communism, which only deals with what you have and what you don't have.
It's simply growing, the GDP growth from 88 to 2009, from almost 6%, we are currently 9%. And also, in the wake of liberalization, economic liberalization, whatever has heralded in 1991, there's a distinct pattern change from the investment point of view. If you see earlier the government investment used to be the rule, but now with the economic liberalization, the private investment has taken over to large extent the government investment.
center. I hope this particular session which is going on here will deliberate on environment, which is very important in day-to-day life of the citizens, very important to our country. But one thing we have to keep in mind, one side is the development, other side is the environment. I always say that mining, when we talk of mining, wherever mining takes place, environment is bound to be damaged. Nobody can do mining without environment, damage to environment. But it is the responsibility of the good government to strike a balance between mining and environment. Our rule has
Lost faith in the police forces of the state to protect them, have not looked at the problem in all its dimensions and keep on arguing with each other that this is not the answer, this is not the answer. It's not a question of one after the other. It is doing everything simultaneously.
Again, these are separate issues. The core of competition law and policy is ultimate object of the competition law is to protect the interests of consumers. Because in the rural area also there is a large chunk, about 40%, which is termed or branded the areas of darkness. Crime seems to have stopped maybe 500-600 years ago out there. We have practically nothing. No electrification, there are no roads, no infrastructure, no food, no education, no health, nothing.
Judges need to be informed of what is happening. They can't live in ivory tower. But at the same time, I am of the opinion that they should be able to withstand.
I don't think that we should regulate ourselves. I think if we look at ourselves as journalists, we are not a profession. You don't have to pass any exam to be a journalist. We can't shut each other out. No one can say to me or you that, like they can for a barrister or a doctor, you can no longer conduct your profession. We are a pretty wild pack lot, basically. And I think that there does need to be regulation.